What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we got to talk about Quantic Dream. Cannot let this topic go by me, right? And look, I don't try to be negative. Generally, I'd say 90% of my content is quite positive. And here's the deal. I do want to say, just from the beginning, this game looks more interesting than 60, 70% of the other games that are like it that are out there. But that doesn't mean that I'm interested in it. It doesn't mean that I will be playing it, and it doesn't stop the kind of overall conversation, which is, well, what's going on? You might be asking, what is Quantic Dream actually doing? Well, they're tinkering away with Star Wars Eclipse, right? They issued the statement today that game, the development is still ongoing, and the whole kind of, we look forward to sharing more, at a future date. So I'll take that as a positive, only because Star Wars Eclipse is one of those games that I think 4 years that we've just had absolutely nothing. Or I guess maybe it's approaching 4 years. So it's one of those classic games. They show it far too early. They show it to assemble talent, right? There's all these rumors that people don't want to work for them, even with that trailer for Star Wars Eclipse. So whatever, okay? The game's still happening. I wish for the best for it. I believe Quantic Dream, much like maybe some other people, rebounded, obviously, with Detroit Become Human. Now, I've always loved Beyond Two Souls. Always. I did a retrospective a few years back on Back to the Past, and I've always loved that game. I still love that game, but they needed to kind of come back hard with Detroit with the butterfly effect type system, right? When you do one thing, it's going to affect 10 different things, and they really had that things stolen from them. Other studios started doing it far better than they did around the time of Beyond Two Souls, right? So they do Detroit Become Human. They iron that stuff out. They're doing Star Wars. Okay, things are generally okay. So firstly, the name, because I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I have to look at it. Spellcasters Chronicles. It is just one of the most nothing names I think I've ever heard in my life. And the game, it is a game you've probably seen like 80 times before. Now, again, I will say, it looks okay. I don't think I would play it, but it looks okay. But that doesn't stop like the general thing and where I come from. Or you might say, Alex, you're just so against live service games no matter what. I believe like free to play like hero type situation, right? 3v3 is what this game is. My main issue with pretty much any time something like this happens, right? And the core of my issue with Quantic Dream specifically here, this is something that they've got absolutely no business making, right? And that's me. I'm saying right for validation, I guess. But I really hate that in particular. That is why when it comes to PlayStation or any of these other times that, we have seen this pivot. We've seen a studio or a publisher chase trends instead of setting a trend. I'll give you another good one. FBC Firebreak from Remedy. Remedy is one of my favorite developers, period. They make some game of the year, game of the generation type games, okay? I love them to death. They set the trends. Now, they're niche. They're not out there selling 10, 15 million units, but they do what they do extremely well, and other people highly respect it. So when you go out and you try to make your Extraction, whatever the heck FBC Firebreak was trying to do, you are trying to follow what 5,000 games have done before you, and you are doing it with a team that's got no idea how to do it. Now, ultimately, that game turned out okay, but in terms of the performance, pathetic, right? Terrible. That is, to me, always has been the crux of my argument. There's nothing inherently wrong with live service, free to play, things like that. Those that do it can do it well. Can some jump into it? Yeah, I would say maybe Slow Clap, right? They do Sifu, which is just a phenomenal game. Then they make Rematch. Rematch is one of my favorite games of this year. There's some hate for it, but I think overall people were very impressed with their ability to... And now you have to pay for Rematch, actually, funny enough. So granted, and to be fair, is it possible that these things can work out? Yes, but... I still will always take the under 9 out of 10 times, with these situations, because Quantic Dream, like I just said, was trying to get back, in my opinion, to basics with Detroit Become Human. They were trying to get back to their identity. And then what did they do? They did it pretty well. And Detroit sold really, really well. Like there's really a franchise in the making. I know people will clown on David Cage so much, and some for valid reasons. And also people will clown specifically on Detroit Become Human, and some for valid reasons as well. But that game, I mean, at least from performance-wise, has all the makings of like a franchise. You could easily do more of those. You can go back and do another, detective-style Heavy Rain thing. Point being, what you should probably not do is step completely out of your comfort zone, because what is it? What is the play here? It's simply just this reoccurring money stream thing that everybody's trying to do, that these type of games that they're trying to make has been made 1,000 times before. Now, journalists, I do think, some of them at least, I think maybe GameSpot, some were able to go hands-on with this game, and the general reception is, it's fine. And that's like, that might be the most damning thing about it, because you know what other game was kind of fine? Concord. Concord was not a horrific, like there was definitely, like the characters and just their general looks was pretty pathetic. But in general, like the actual, I don't know, movement and the abilities, like it was fine. It was one of the most fine, like 4 out of 10 games you could ever get. But there's like 2,000 of those type of games, and it has nothing to set itself apart from any of them, and you had to pay for it. So it just did not work. And that's the general problem. It's not, I don't know, maybe it is to discourage never making these games again, but point is, there is a lot of oversaturation. Like, these companies have got to know that. I don't understand why they don't know that. Like, there's too many of these games. 9 out of 10 of them are the failures. I always say it, in these videos. The ones you know about, those are the success stories. But there are hundreds of failures per one good game or one successful game, a game that gets 20,000 people concurrently on Steam. There are 10,000 games. I mean, that's maybe too much. There's a couple hundred games that probably get 50 or less people per day. And like, that's not good. That's not good enough for those games to be successful. But you have hundreds of those for every one Dead by Daylight. For every one Rocket League, you have 100 failures. It's rough out there, and it's specifically for a studio that's not built for it to start to do it. Now, I think they said, like, they did start a new studio. They opened, I think, a Montreal studio, so maybe they built the entire team with the mentality to make this game. But I'm sorry if it's too negative, but I feel the writing on the walls, and I can easily see this game opening up, right? You can see it. It goes on Steam. It's got a peak concurrent of like 2,000 or less people, and then 6 days later, it's 50 or less people, and the game dies after 1 week. It's been done 1,000 times. That's why we can see it, and that's why we can imagine it happening for them. And it's also not like, hey, well, don't make any game. I'm not saying, like, shut your company down. Make games that you're more geared towards. Why don't you, like, put everybody on Star Wars Eclipse? Why don't you do another Detroit? Why don't you just invest in what, honestly, you are very good at? They were really some of the origin point, like Heavy Rain, like, really, for as much, like, all of their games get clowned on, and David Cage gets clowned on. But like, Heavy Rain is such an important game. It really is. It's such an important game. And they're, like, they know what they're doing to a degree. So I just don't understand the massive pivot. You could argue it's not a pivot because they're doing both of them. But I don't know. You really want to write down, like, a $50 million deficit? Because if this game fails, you could say, well, that's not going to affect Star Wars Eclipse. Well, say they lose, like, 10, 30, 50, $70 million just from this game. Does that not hurt Quantic Dream as a company? You're not going to really convince me that it won't hurt the company, right? So I don't know. I don't think it's a good move. I think that everybody's obviously clowning on it, but I wanted to give some at least my reasoning. I don't just hate things just to hate it or dislike just to dislike. I try to have my reasons, and again, it doesn't even look bad. That's the thing. There's so many more dislikes than likes on the trailer. It doesn't look bad, but it looks like, again, just fine. And we have too many fine games. And in this genre that they are trying to compete in, and that's the thing, fine is not good enough. Not in that genre. You can do a 5-hour, one of their type of games, right? Choice-based things, and you can shoot for the freaking moon. You can try all of these things, and maybe it also just becomes fine, but it might be acceptable, in that genre. What they're doing now, fine, and same thing with Concord. Fine is not good enough for these games. Helldivers 2 is not fine. If it was fine, it wouldn't have worked, right? It needs to be far better than fine. And I just feel so many of these companies feel just by trying it, it's going to work. And I mean, the simple reality is most times, 9 out of 10 times, it does not work. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.